So hello everyone. This is another edition of the UFI Connect series that UFI's been putting on for you during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Sonia Thomas, I'm the CEO of UFI, and I will be moderating this session today with Kai Hattendorf, who's the UFI CEO. So this is a follow-up to the previous session on female leadership that we had on the 10th of June. So I'd like to wish a very warm welcome to our three panelists. So we've got Mary Larkin, who's UFI president, and she's also president of Diversified Communications in the USA. We've got Simon Kimble, who's executive chairman of Clarion events in the UK. And we've also got Margaret Connolly, who's CEO of Informa Markets Asia, and she's based in Hong Kong. So I'll just give some housekeeping rules just to remind you how these things work. So this is a discussion, first of all. Okay, this is not people giving speeches and you listening. This is an interactive session. So each panelist will give a brief intro and then they'll answer your questions. Those questions you can ask via the chat function. So please go ahead and ask all the questions that you have that you'd like the panelists to answer. In the meantime, you're all on mute. And if you're called up then to ask your question, we'll unmute you, okay? The team will unmute you. So as you may or may not know, diversity and leadership is an issue that UFI is currently working on, and that our president, Mary Larkin, has made a priority during her year as president. We saw the results of the recent UFI chapter elections. They're all great individuals, but most of them are actually male. And this reflects the leadership in our industry. So what I'm going to do now, if I can manage it, is to share my screen. And I want to show you two charts. If you want, whoops, sorry. I'd like to share with just two charts very quickly. Can you see my screen okay? Okay, so these are two charts and I wanted to share them with you because they're the percentage of women on the boards of the largest quoted companies within Europe, within the EU. Okay, so this is 2008 compared to 2018. I chose these 5 countries because these are the countries with the most UFI members within the EU. So you can see in the space of 10 years, the progression in France, in Germany, Italy, Spain, and the UK, in terms of the number of women who are part of the board. This gives you an overall picture. So if you have a look, apart from France, we're all way behind in the gender balance zone. So this is an overall view of the EU zone for gender diversity on boards of the largest quoted companies. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you. And now I'm going to stop sharing. There we go, all good. So now I'm going to pass briefly over to Kai Hattendorf. Over to you, Kai. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Sonia, and also from me, welcome. Good day, good evening, good morning to wherever you are, and thanks to Mary, Margaret, and Simon for being with us today, and to all of you for joining the conversation. Not to repeat what has been said, just to add 2 data points, as we've been following this issue on the UFI side as well. Those of you who were with us at the Global Congress in St. Petersburg will remember that we did a session based on research where we asked the male and female colleagues in the industry to share how they see their own strengths and the strength of the respective other gender, and it just caused a lot of conversation about perceptions and realities. We've been following up in the barometer research that we published actually today. So I'm also going to share my screen to share one finding, because we said diversity is one of those issues. Obviously, there's a lot of COVID-related data and impact on business in the barometer. But we deliberately added a question on the impact of COVID on issues like diversity and sustainability and also digitization. So I'll just share this one slide with us, with everyone to get us started on a conversation. As an industry, on a scale of 1 to 5, we actually feel like we are progressing okay-ish with 2.9 out of 5 on the when it comes to transitioning to more diverse companies. The impact COVID-19 has on company activities in diversity shows a split where roughly 4 out of 10 companies say they've seen a strong or significant impact on their diversity activities through COVID-19, but 6 out of 10 companies say, no, there has been only a limited or no impact at all. And when you look to where the money goes, which is always very worthwhile looking if you want to drive an issue, 45% of the 460-ish companies participating in this barometer from, I think, 80-something countries in the world say the investments into diversity-related projects, activities are stable, and in a few cases, 11% actually increased their investments, whereas the other half, the slightly bigger half, have stopped or decreased investments. As we have been looking into areas where we can work with authorities, governments, institutions to provide public funding, we added the question about public funding as a driver for change, or a driver for issues. And it's interesting to see that globally, every 4th company says to drive diversity will need public investments and public attention. Roughly half of the company says it's necessary for a significant share, and around 1/4 say, no, sorry, we don't need public funding to get on with the issue of diversity. Again, just these 2 data points I wanted to make sure to share as we release them today to add something from the data side of where the industry thinks we stand. And with that, Sonia, back to you.
Thank you, Kai. And I'm going to hand right over now to Mary. Mary, over to you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I am delighted that we are having this follow-up discussion from our June 10th session. And this, as Sonia mentioned, this topic is top of mind for me. It is the initiative that I wanted to drive along with sustainability as part of my presidency of UFI. And so early in this process, in this calendar year, the impact of COVID on our businesses and just on the overall worldwide economy and situation, that was the focus for everyone. And I personally was concerned that my year as president was going to go by the wayside and that I wouldn't be able to drive some of these initiatives as the first female president. So with speaking with Sonia and Kai, we basically came up with the plan to have a session. That the last session was with Debbie Christensen and Cliff Wallace. And we had a really great conversation. Lots of questions came through the chat, that the conversation really took a life of its own. And that night I was on a session, I am part of a women's group that meets, it's led by Martha Donato, that meets on a Wednesday evening. And we had an even greater discussion that night, but the feedback was very, very positive. So we wanted to try and follow up with this. So I'm delighted to be here again and to have the conversation with Simon and Margaret and all of you, and hope that we can drive this issue forward. I've been on the board of CISO for many years, and I'm actually the chair of the Women's Special Interest Group, which we will also be launching a special interest group for women in women's leadership. Men can join that too for UFI. So we'll be talking about that. If you have any interest, please email Sonia or myself if you want to be a part of it. So that's my introduction. So I'll pass it back to you, Sonia.
So thank you very much, Mary. And now over to you, Simon, if you would be so kind.
Yes, hi Sonia, thank you very much indeed, and hello Mary, and hello Margaret and Kai. Well, I'm kind of not often I'm the token male on a panel, so it's touche, perhaps you're all saying. I'm not sure even why I was invited to be on this panel, but I do have a vested interest. I wanted to share with you that I have 2 daughters that are in the industry, and therefore if change can happen and they can benefit from that, then I'm all for that. But I think board change is one thing. I think your slide, Sonia, we're talking about board change, and I think there's some encouraging signs, but I think that's only one aspect of it. I think change is needed, if you like, across all aspects of the business. And I'm not necessarily a big believer in what I would call positive discrimination or female-only shortlists, etc. But I do think that we need to be thinking this at, really actually almost at the entrance level as to how we are treating people and how we're progressing them towards leadership. And obviously, females take a very strong part in that. But I think the other thing that I want to challenge, and I don't know what came out of that first session, because unfortunately I wasn't a part of that, but for me, as a sort of a slightly crusty old man, I think there's an aspect to this which is also quite important, which is often overlooked, which I'd like to raise and perhaps discuss, and which is that I think that we, and I use me as an example, but I think a lot of men and people like me need some advice, need some training, need some help really in being able to understand how we have to act it differently, because we talk about conscious bias, unconscious bias, whatever it might be. I've been working in the same way for a long time now, and clearly there's benefits, huge benefits to having more female leadership within our business. And I don't think I need to go through all those different benefits, but actually we need to change our language and we need to change how we operate and how we talk to each other. And I think that's something that needs to be thought about quite carefully, and perhaps more help that, if you like, female leaders need to help the male leaders in understanding that. But clearly, I think I'm more in listening mode today, and certainly very happy to be here and contribute. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon. And I'll now hand over to Margaret. Margaret, over to you.
Okay, unmute. Hello, everyone. Good to be here. And my intuition tells me today this panel is going to be a good one. Not because our job titles. It's really because the fact our panel itself is quite diverse. And I see we have about close to 100 attendees online. And I hope that demographics is equally diverse. So later on when we have Q&A, we'll have a lot more open discussions. So for me, this topic of female leadership is an interesting one. And I'm a firm believer of really two principles. One is always the best person for the job, regardless of gender. But for ladies to be successful in career, success really is a partnership. This is actually one of my personal guiding principles, and also happen to be Informa's, one of Informa's 4 guiding principles. I'll explain a bit more. So for the ladies out there who are thinking about leadership development, really, I think we're not here to check a box. We're here really to demonstrate we can contribute value. So for business, at the end of the day, like Simon said, it's all about ROI, performance, and what really matters to the business. And we can really help to make our contribution. But my view versus a lot of the system and theory out there, KPI and quota, I don't think this is something we could really force. Forcing it wouldn't really work. And on the contrary, is counterproductive, because cultural value, our family upbringing, all has profound impact on women, how we perceive leadership opportunity, whether it's suitable for us or not. So we need to have a bit patience, but Simon's right. We need to start from the ground up, building the pipeline, providing the support, have the executive sponsorship to bring them up. So aim for speed, but definitely not to rush it. I'm lucky enough, growing up in Shanghai, China, culturally, this part of the geography tend to be more conducive for women pursuing a working career or dual income family at the very least. And also looking back, when I was a young girl, my dad, although he never really intended to teach me to be a CEO, I never thought I would be CEO, but my dad always said, oh, you're smart enough so you can be good at whatever you choose to do. I think encouragement like that really made a big difference. And really having Simon here and all the open-minded fathers and husbands and boyfriends, I think men actually, their understanding of us made a huge difference. So thank you. And I think my husband, Tim, is probably online. I'll be home right after this. Then the other thing is really along the way, I learned as, you know, one of the females in the workplace, we need to actually be more honest about where we are vulnerable, where we need help, and be willing to ask for that, because success is really a partnership in life and also at work. Some of the colleagues or friends know me personally a bit better. They would understand, because in the past decade, I went through a serious crisis in my personal life. The reason I can come out actually being a stronger and better person really has a lot to do with the support system, with all the friends and family, even helpers who really helped me through. I think for all of us, you know, getting the balance right is never easy. And frankly, there isn't a real perfect balance of work and family life. But asking for help, getting the support you needed, and trusting the support is really key. And in the workplace, I always found I'm not usually the best salesperson, the best marketer, or the best into the operation SOPs. But the smartest thing is surround ourselves with the best and brightest, because really the value we add to the table is help all the collective wisdom to come to a much better decision at the end of the day that really help business to advance. So really have all these colleagues and peers support us and earn their trust to really drive the teams through. This is our value, and all in the partnerships, internally and externally. So maybe I should just stop here. Some idea to discuss later.
Your dad sounds great, Margaret.
Thank you.
To have encouraged you as a young child to go and do whatever you wanted to do because you had the capacity to do so. It sounds like, wow, what a great mentor. And I'm just going to maybe perhaps ask the first question to the panel. We had a brief discussion about this yesterday when we caught up together, and we talked about the importance of mentorship. So is it something that you actually do within your company, is try to spot young talent and help that person, whether they be female or male, to on the road to career success within your company?
Well, I can start with that. Just listening to Simon and Margaret, before I answer that, one of the things I do think the impact of fathers on daughters as they are growing up is huge. My father was the same. He believed that women had a tougher time in the workforce, and believed that we should be, he would push education more on his daughters than, well, my brothers were all educated too, but the impact is huge. And with regards to the mentorship in companies, we have a mentorship program. It's identifying one or two people. It tends to be the mid-level manager to director level that we would focus on a mentorship program and have a matchmaking side to it within the company, where it's somebody from another team. So it is something that we actively do. We are probably 70% female and diversified, and 30% male. And that, as we've seen in the industry, that changes, that percentage changes the higher up the organization you go. Diversified has really focused on a balanced leadership, and we're 50-50 at the senior level. So.
Yeah, I can also contribute to this particular point. I've actually done quite a bit mentoring even before I joined exhibition industry. So in tech and logistics, both men and women, I found actually mentoring is most helpful when actually we pair it up with people with fairly different background. And in sometimes actually reverse mentorship really helps. My recent mentee is actually, I'm taking on an intern recommended by our London office. So she's relatively junior in terms of her work experience, but I think I really look forward to building this conversation relationship with her, because she's just graduating and she has a lot of experience outside the university doing good for the society. And a lot of these might be inspiration for me as well. So I think a lot of it could start from the ground level, even from, graduate recruitment, graduate training, management trainee program, before they become real team managers.
Yeah, I think my add to that, I don't know whether you can hear me, but my add to that would be that I'm not so sure we are in Clarion very good at mentoring or not. I guess there are some people that are. I would flip it round. I think for me, I would encourage people to find mentors. I think we'll know them in businesses, in personal life. You were talking, Margaret, about the sort of the collective wisdom. And I think for people entering or wanting to learn, the more they can get from other people, the better, the more that they can actually work with other people. And I would put the emphasis on the individuals to try and seek out those mentors that are going to help them, be it male or female. And I think, we should be encouraging that as a business, perhaps not necessarily it's top down, it's the other way around.
Right.
So coming in here and a little bit following up on the issue of mentorship from sharing a story that's 10 years old on how an organization can learn from observing what's happening within. We just had our second child in 2010, and I was running a division at a major international organizer based in Germany in a city beginning with F. I went part-time for a while because obviously I want to be home with a newborn as much as I could. And this was not an issue and perfectly fine for the upper management. However, it was contested by quite a few men, surprisingly, in the middle management saying, why should I adjust my schedule to your reduced availability because you decide to go part-time in your fluffy high leadership position? And that caused an interesting conversation in the company about whether it's okay for leaders to go part-time when others are working full-time. We had a lot of conversations about that, and the outcome was it became a major issue at a town hall, but having had that conversation changed the approach of many in the company towards that. And afterwards it became, not saying I was I was an agent for change or something, but it was something much more common later on, and other senior leaders also did similar things when they had children. But then I was the youngest among them, and so probably the last ones to get children. But it was an interesting conversation we had based on basically a case that came up, and I'm pleased to say the organization took it up and reviewed and learned from it. Nicole Peck, you wanted to bring up an issue in reply to a comment that Simon made. So good morning, New York City.
Good morning from New York City. It's nice, it's early here, but we're up supporting this panel. Thank you guys for doing this. It's so great to see you all. So Simon made a pretty, I thought, awesome statement, and I was hoping we might be able to dive into it more, and that he mentioned that, I'm going to pull my shirt back a little bit so you all don't see too much, that talking to women, perhaps there's opportunity for women to coach men and to speak with men, that's a challenge. And I was hoping we could dive into that a little bit. My assumption was he was speaking in a networking or social setting, and that might be a shift of conversation, but I was hoping that maybe we could talk about that because I thought that was a pretty profound comment.
Well, let me back it up with where I was coming from. We've had the good fortune to have a very good leader in our business, a female leader, come onto the board, and I think it's taken me quite a while to go from what was been a very male environment to welcoming a female. So the first instance of that is actually it must be pretty intimidating for one female to be in amongst half a dozen males, let alone how that acts. But actually, in terms of how I've had to moderate and how I've had to think about things, and I'm not saying for 1 minute that I'm there, but it has been learning on the job, so to speak. So I think the lady in question in my instance is Lisa. You might know Lisa Hannon, and therefore she's done by example. She's helped us, moderate our behaviour. Perhaps she might not even realise she's done that. but actually she's helped us moderate our language. And again, I don't think she knows that she's done that. And it struck me that actually, if we had that in the beginning, it would have been a much safer place for women to actually have got involved in. It would have been much safer for us to be thinking about women leadership. And I guess we just didn't know how to do it. Certainly, I can only speak for myself, but I think the more knowledge, the more training we have of that, clearly the benefit has been huge. And I think Sonia was talking to us yesterday and said something that the FTSE 100 companies with more female coverage have all done far better than the non-female coverage. So, you know, there's some irrefutable facts there. So I think it's good old-fashioned training that we need, we being a very broad term.
Thank you, Simon. Is anyone else? Does Margaret, Mary, would you like to comment?
I admire you for saying that, Simon. I think, you know, there's all too often the old boys network that is very difficult for women to penetrate that group. And, you know, I've seen it happen at events. I think it's the way we network in a lot of cases. Now, there are many answers to this, to that comment, but I do believe is the way we network, and you know, there's that camaraderie that men have. Women tend to network differently. It's that a lot of that is that support group phenomenon that you see. Like, if I look at even the groups that have formed during this past few months when we're all working from home, you know, getting the women's group together has been really, it's the best meeting of the week. You know, the discussion is very varied. It covers business right through to personal, you know, comments or questions. But I do believe being observant of how women are on the periphery in many cases. So there's lots of data as well. For a woman to affect change, and good on Lisa, if she has made such a huge impact on your organization, because in many boards, it takes 2 to 3 women to actually have an impact on a board. And, you know, I think we're going to get into a conversation a little bit about quotas as well, but one woman is that lone voice, and there is that modification of behavior or of conversation. But when there's 2 or 3 women on the board, you actually see change. There is so much data out there, and the data has been available for a long time, that it sometimes feels that we're not progressing. I was delighted to see that slide this morning, that there was so much change. But the data is showing that companies with women on boards do financially better. And when we were in Bangkok, that was the part I wanted to appeal to the audience, that if I can't appeal to you to have diversity because it's the right thing to do, and I was talking about race, creed, the whole works, gender as well, obviously, but I want to appeal to your pocket. Financially, there is a benefit. But still, we see it's difficult to find female CEOs across the globe, and that's in all industries, not just in ours. Ours is pretty much a replica of other industries. So, you know, I do admire you for saying that there is obviously some training that needs to be done, and just being open to it, I think, is huge. So thank you for that, Simon.
Yeah, I think Simon's amazingly courageous make this statement. I would also say actually the reverse is also true. So I probably imagine Mary oftentimes will be in a similar scenario like me, sitting in a senior management meeting where mostly male, maybe 1 or 2 female. It's actually fairly common. But I sometimes observe some of our lady colleagues, great potential, great skill set, smarter than me. They might have a bit difficulty in this case is also understanding how to communicate to a more you know, traditional male colleague environment. I think our lady colleagues could use some training too.
Yeah.
It worked both ways, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is about courage and the risk tolerance. In a lot of these board setting meetings where you see a lot of our gentlemen peers, they bring together their view, make fairly bold statement like what Simon did. But a lot of women tend to have to think it through our heads, formulate it, be almost perfect, then we say it. Then you might miss the rhythm of the meeting. So I think a lot of it also, ladies, we want to get a bit more training about how to use that butterflies in our stomach to really turn it into a motivation for us to speak up, for us to take a little bit educated risks. And also in opportunity coming up like potential relocation offer where you have to actually take a bit of risk in order to advance. Maybe a lot of our lady friends tend to think a lot more before we could make a decision, but our male counterpart actually, his behavior pattern is different, and men and women biologically were designed differently, but we can learn from each other, benefit from that strength, and consciously maybe make ourselves a bit more courageous and say it out loud, our opinions, even if it may not be perfect.
Thank you, all three of you, because I think you've raised some really, really interesting points. Yes, and I totally agree that sometimes in meetings, it's sometimes difficult for a woman who's in a minority position to actually find her voice and be heard. And it's sometimes good if you have a policy wherein everyone has the right to speak and everyone is given the chance and the time to speak. So I think that's important. I have Angela Scapello. Angela, would you like to say something? I think you wanted to add something.
I had to unmute. Thank you very much. So I think a couple of things. And Margaret, it's great to see you. And hopefully this doesn't embarrass you. I think we have to be really deliberate in our intention. And so I applaud this conversation, and I would urge us all to be deliberate in the action that we put into place. And so pre-Informa days, UBM had a very rigorous succession planning program that wasn't just let's put names and say, oh, Susan can be ready in 3 years and Bob can be ready in 2 years. We literally created the job specs for the divisional CEOs and other senior leadership positions. And then we said, what is the experience to readiness that these people would need in order to be considered for those positions should they become open? And so then we would look at candidates and senior people in the organization and we'd say, well, you know what? Caitlin doesn't have acquisition experience, or so-and-so has only managed a declining business. They've never had to grow a business in a very vibrant market. And so then we would, in essence, create a profile that would say, this is the experience to readiness they would need, and that would become a development plan. So here's the wrapping around it, though. We created a program called Women to Watch, because we knew unless we were deliberate in saying, but who are the women who could be made ready, right, that they would get overlooked. And Margaret was one of those women to watch in terms of how could we help prepare Margaret to take over the leadership of UBM Asia. And so it's about being deliberate in what you do as you look into your organization. I think the other thing too is, and I promise I will get off my soapbox soon, is that mentors are great. They're the informal board that we all have that encourage us and educate us. Women and other people in minority groups need sponsors. So if we look at Sheryl Sandberg as a person who's made some incredible success, right? You had Larry Summers, who was her sponsor, who spent his own social and political capital at Harvard and at Treasury, right? To move her along and to recommend her for roles. And then the other final thing I would say is diversity and inclusion sounds scary to some people. What if we talked about belonging? What if every time we looked at how we oriented people, how we hired people, how we socialized with people, how we brought people in, we said, how would we behave if we wanted to create a sense of belonging? Because social scientists have told us that feeling as if we belong is even stronger than our need for physical security. Okay, now I'm going to go on mute.
Very well said.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Yeah, and I think I add to that the word inclusion, because to feel you belong, you have to feel included to start with.
Yeah.
Kai, sorry, Mary, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, I'm watching the comments as well, and you know, there's so much to talk about on this topic, but Margaret is right. Some women need to take a risk, and you will find if you're taking that risk that it's not that big of a risk. You know, it's when you get to when you say your piece or you contribute, that nervousness or whatever, that you have to make it part of your thought process that you're going to lean in, as the book says. You really do have to take a chance and show what you're worth, and show be able to speak your mind and your opinions. And you know, the talk about the Obama administration, that a lot of the women who were in that cabinet or on his teams, they supported each other and their ideas. So when a woman would take a risk and say something, it was supported by another woman, so it was heard. And so often, you know, a woman would take a risk and say something, it's not heard, a man would say it and it's a great idea. So we all have to work together to watch out for those women, to watch and to support them as they are taking that risk. So sorry, interrupted, plenty to say.
No worries. It's a conversation. So for everyone to chime in. Let me call up Leah. Leah Freeland, you posted a comment.
Hi, Kai. Thank you very much. And thank you to both yourself and Simon for your insights here. I find this really valuable to have your perspective here. I want to lead on from what Angela Scapello has said in terms of like taking decisive action. And have you found any useful sources or resources that have actively helped you channel this momentum and drive this change?
So who wants to take this?
Like resources
of information that have helped you kind of target and take this momentum forward. We talk about having mentors and things, but have you found that there is anything out there that you can use educationally wise for your workforce?
You know, we in Diversified, we've worked with Angela, you know, as a lead on from the CISO Women's Leadership Group. There's a leadership conference. Because the event is being postponed this year, we are looking at taking some of that digitally, some of that education digitally or virtually. But personally, I've gone out and sought the information. I have really watched, you know, I'm energetic, I'm driven. To channel all of that and to get ahead in my own career or to do what I really wanted to do and love doing. I sought out the education myself, but there's plenty of information out there. We've brought in Angela to do unconscious bias training at Diversified. We will probably do that again, partly because, you know, in the US, there is a lot of focus on race diversity as well. So there's really using the resources available through UFI and through CISO is what I have come across and done.
But Mary, that sounds like a very good part of the brief for the new UFI group you wanted to talk about today as well, if I can. Build your pencil if I want to now.
Yeah, well, so we had a discussion a few weeks ago about how do we educate and how do we drive this, and we are going to form a women's special interest group. So I would love it if women and men who are on this call, if you want to be a part of it, let Sonia and I know. It's an open it's a blank sheet right now. We can form it whatever way we want. It's something that we can talk about education, and there are differences of opinions, and I want to emphasize that. What I've been finding in the work I've been doing on this subject, the US has very different opinions on how this driving women's leadership forward, how that takes place versus the conversations I've had with European women. In the US, they want men at the table. They want men as part of the discussion. We can't affect change without the men who have been leading the companies that we're all a part of. In Europe, I found they weren't necessarily as keen to have men at the table because they felt that women wouldn't speak up. And somewhere in between lies the answer, probably. So that's something I would like to address as part of maybe the first topic around the women's SIG as we form it. I'm looking forward to being able to meet people face to face again, where we can have that discussion and form a working group around this, and hopefully help drive, watch out for those women and get them into the positions that they really should be in.
Yeah, I agree with Mary. I think for our young women out there, being more proactive really makes a huge difference. A lot of these points we talk about, they're actually all interrelated. So proactively seek out help, find the resources, educate ourselves, and seek out potential mentors. Maybe not even through an official, it doesn't have to be official mentor-mentee program. And through that, potentially you may meet the future executive sponsor. So Angela's point on the importance of the executive sponsorship is really key. For me, if I look back, I worked in many different industries. So I started in quality certification, which primarily I was surrounded by German engineers, very technical specialists. And later media, I was in .com boom back in US, tech world pretty much like that. But along the way, because I like to ask a lot of questions, I'm not necessarily shy about just asking things I don't know. And actually, I get to meet interesting people. And also, you know, because of curiosity, sometimes you get noticed by others. So along the way, actually, all my executive sponsors, they are all men, you know. It wasn't exactly my intention, but actually work out to be better. So I think being proactive to seek out these connections. Could be this is also, you know, working to our female sales advantage. We tend to build these support groups unconsciously. Over time, it turned out to be a great bonding relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, David Paloma from Ayala. I think you have a question that you'd like to ask us. I've just unmuted. Yeah, you're unmuted now, David.
Yes, do you hear me?
We hear you perfectly fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it was not exactly a question. It's like from my side, I will be glad to collaborate with any program that we can help within Ayala and UFI. And I think also a few ladies and gentlemen from Ayala, some of them I see here, and it will be also interested in collaborating in a unified program from the both associations, you know. So today is the thing is like it's about collaboration and communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would anybody like to respond to that? Simon, would you like to respond to David?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch what David was saying, but I could you paraphrase for me?
Do you hear me now, Simon? It's better sound now?
Yes, sorry.
So sorry. It's what I was telling is like I will be glad to like personally collaborate in any program that we can do within Yela and UFI, and also I think from Yela it will be like a few people that will be interested in collaborating some program of a unified program when with all the associations can be involved in, and you know, I think it will be like a very good, and that's what I was telling. It's all about collaboration and communication on this day. So
yeah, I mean I agree. It is about collaboration, but I think if I still think there's a lot of areas of fundamental change that need to be addressed, and I just think there's still a path that's going forward, and I wonder whether there is a way that getting all these associations together, which actually can help companies almost deliver out a charter, because I think that, you know, just in terms of what we're, you know, Kai's story at the, you know, when he talked about it at the start of being, you know, people being quite shocked of him wanting to take what was paternity leave, which is perhaps a little bit more apparent now. I still think that's very, you know, it's still a very different thing in Britain, certainly. If someone, a senior manager, male, paternity leave, it's seen to be quite strange. Not unacceptable, but still quite strange. Obviously, for females to take maternity leave, it isn't. But I think that if we can actually push that round the other way, that the implications of this is very different. So if actually maternity and paternity leave, as an example, becomes a very much an accepted route, then you will take away that prejudice in that first instance. And I think that in its own right will actually help women advance up the ladder more, as they will be seen in a more equal light as opposed to a disadvantage. So I think that I don't know. I just, the frustration for me is that I think it is, you know, we are taught at a very early age that women do this and men do that, and I think that's changing, but it's not changing fast enough. And I think if we could actually create through the associations with UFI leading it, a way of actually thinking about how that happens when someone comes into the company at 20 years of age, not necessarily when they're 35 and looking for a senior management position. I think that it's those steps all the way up that can help there. I think Margaret sort of articulated very beautifully how she's managed to, in a number of jobs, and actually get a lot of sponsors. And I think that's I don't know whether that's something which is more prevalent in China or in the Far East, but it's certainly not so prevalent over here. And I think that's if we can actually have a framework to do that, that would be great, would be my add to your point.
Yeah, the other thing actually just came to me. I was thinking on the point of, you know, maternity, paternity leave. It's understandable sometimes men or women needed to have a bit of a break from the busy full-time work life to really take care of the family. Actually, I know a lot of great women who are highly talented, but made a conscious decision, maybe I take a few years off to really focus on newborn baby, right? But after a couple of years, oftentimes they are actually very much interested in coming back. But current corporate way of recruitment, how we assess new candidate, doesn't really give them that good a chance of coming back and potentially quickly advance into a management position. They have the experience, they have the skill set, they have the maturity. We really should think about how to actually bring women back. I remember I read an article, there are some companies start to do that, helping women restart or continue their career after taking a break. I think these are highly valuable talent resources for us.
I second that. I think that's very true. We've introduced paternity leave, so it's into the company. So both men and obviously women will take maternity leave, but men get 6 weeks paid leave for when there's a new baby in their family.
Yeah. Some lady colleagues I know in Asia, you know, those are highly dedicated to work. Sometimes they feel a little bit torn. I'm relatively new to the company. If I want to pursue my career, is it appropriate for me to have children? I you know, went through this entire UBM. Actually give birth to 2 baby boys. I know it's not easy, but it is possible with some support, with some, you know, planning of schedule. But yeah, more support system around that, the better. I think women can choose to be a mother, have children, and also be able to develop a career. Same for our male colleagues.
Yeah, picking up on that and harking back to the slide, Sonia, that you shared in the very beginning, top of these lists with the European countries are the Scandinavian countries. And as most of you will know, my wife is Norwegian. So we are comparing the way things are done in Germany with the way things are done in Norway quite regularly. And there's no more maternal leave or fatherly leave, there's only parental leave. And if you want to qualify for the government support for that, you have to split that with at least 2/3, 1/3 of the time going to each parent, or you don't get the public money. Very simple. And the result is a more balanced male-female quota on the boards of one of those different policies compared to other markets. Marty Glynn, good morning, you raised your hand. Marty, where are you?
I'm here, I think. Am I?
Good. I hear you.
All right. So I was thinking about what Margaret said on the biology piece. And although this may seem obvious, how I've been thinking about it and where failure has happened in my own personal life and how evolution happens, what came to my mind was when you're younger, there's a combination of ambition, ego, and testosterone. And as you get older and your testosterone wanes and your ego gets satisfied and ambition starts to lead to a way where you're fulfilled, it starts to lead into kind of legacy type stuff. And like Simon said, he has 2 daughters, and now did age and wisdom and experience kind of change the thought process. And I believe personally there's a biological factor in testosterone does play a role, because when you are younger, you are more ambitious. You don't even realize it. It's not until you're older that you kind of, see your behavior in a different light. And I don't think it's as hardwired as women against men, as it's just ambition and ego and testosterone. And as that kind of starts to wean away and life experience comes in, that all of a sudden you have a little different clarity. And then you go back and almost have recompense to say, wow, what was I doing? And how do I really modify my behavior? And I don't want to say it would be guilt, but it would be more along the lines of enlightenment, I think. And I think in groups like this, when you embrace people who have that kind of thought process, the dialogue, I think, goes harder and faster because you understand a little bit of the background. And I may be wildly off base, but that's a personal observation that I thought was important to share because of, Margaret's, the biological piece. Because, yeah, obviously men and women are different, but I think you really need to understand sometimes testosterone really plays a role that you don't even know it. So again, maybe wildly off base, but I wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah, on this point, actually, the other thing interesting is some very talented lady colleagues advancing in their career track noticed their behavior actually sometimes change a bit in the management meeting setting, behave more like men, more assertive and aggressive. But I know actually when we're together as lady friends, it's not their natural style. So it's almost like, intentionally trying to be more masculine. But usually there is another flip side of that coin. Although you maybe seem as more decisive, more power in a boardroom setting, but actually this person, the persona is female coming across, actually not generally liked by many people. So I think it's actually better to be true to ourselves. Yep. Being feminine is okay. And work your way through problems, way through relationship, just being who you are. Actually tend to work out better than trying to be somebody else. For women, try to be a man or try to be a Superman. I don't think we're not superhuman by any definitions.
As you were speaking, Margaret, and I do thank Marty for his comments, men and women are different, and it's like, why do they have to be the same? You know, like, I think it's time for the labeling to stop. And, you know, if a woman presents herself aggressively in a meeting, she's got a different name than a man. You know, a man is what is just aggressive. A woman, well, I'm not going to go there with language, but that's got to stop. I think that's where we need to make some change as well. You know, like, think about the internal language. And it's gone back to what Simon said earlier. You know, there's a modification of behavior, yes, but there's an opportunity to listen to what's being said, as opposed to the thought process of, well, she's too feminine, or he's too aggressive, or the boys club, or whatever it is. Yeah. Maybe one place to start is changing those labels, because I've always just been true to myself. I don't know how to be a man. So, you know, and Sonia and I have been having conversations, you know, throughout, well, for many years now, about this topic. And I think I benefited from being able to network with men because of the industry I was selling exhibit space to. And it was the seafood industry. And I would say 95% of the decision makers were men. So I became very comfortable with it, with that type of negotiation. But I didn't see them as men. I saw them as a contract I need to get, you know. So I think I benefited from that. But I love the fact that the discussion is getting so deep into how we can actually make some change instead of just being about quotas and so on.
Sure.
I think, Dina, you raised your hand. You wanted to say something?
Hello, everyone from Zagreb. Hello, Mary and all the guys. I would like to support a bit of Margaret and Simon's elaboration before, but I really like a martingling point of some female and male diversity. All of a sudden, it came to me that the effect of using this diversity, which we are very familiar, which advantages it brings. Actually, this morning, to prepare a little bit for this session, I have go through late McKinsey research around COVID and gender equality effects. And it came all of a sudden to me to mind that in line with Mary's effort, maybe to start with stop labeling male and female, and maybe we can start from aptitude, in adding to attitude and motivation. If you want to overtake responsibility, you have to be aware that with responsibility, it came a lot that you have maybe to left a little bit behind and make priorities. As Kai greatly mentioned his point around parental maternity, when one female person decides to go through career ladders, I think the first thing is to be aware of balance between what we used to be unpaid care, to put it like this, and what are the expectations of the female to do in a community, whether it's business or a family. And once we solve this, I do not see any other obstacles that we cannot overcome. Because if you're motivated to run a company or to run the organization or to whatever kind of decision it is, then if I'm correctly noted here, I think Margaret mentioned it at the very beginning. We are looking for best person to fit the job. And my position and my opinion here is to sustain this position that we are still looking when we need something in our team or somebody to support our team, that we are looking for a best person that fits the need and that fits the role. Because in my team, I have a half men and half women. You know, we are a fair organizer and a fair venue owner with lots of difficulties lately, but we overcame it. And right now, if I have to add somebody in my team, I wouldn't ask whether this person is male or female. I would look at his attitude, at his skills, and of course at his capabilities. So I firmly support this let's say, paradigm that we do not maybe split our unique feathers of men and women. I would rather look at the supporting part when women is on maternal leave or of other requirements that are needed to care with the family. And if you have enough support, I don't see any obstacles in going to the C-level. I myself, I'm a professor. I'm teaching it to colleges. So I'm looking at my students, which are of course male and female, and I see lots of personalities, but they maybe can fit in one denominator, and this is just attitude and motivation to improve. If you have this attitude, if you are motivated to improve, you'll find a way how. That's my something that I would like to add, and Marty really inspired me to take a hand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. It's attitude and motivation. It's a great lead in. I'd like to ask a closing question to our panel and then hand over to you, Sonia, to wrap things up. It's been a most interesting hour to moderate and listen. Margaret, Simon, Mary, what is your main takeaway and what would be your challenge to UFI to take from this hour? Can I start with you, Margaret?
Today, actually, the discussion is really energetic. I've learned a lot from different perspectives. Yeah, I agree, really, it should be the right person, but I think we can help the right person to come out from the pipeline by starting from the ground. And some of these communication trainings Simon mentioned, I think we will actually make some concentrated effort to really try in Informa to really mitigate that gap in communication style so we can understand each other better and bring out talent for them to be more successful. The conversion rate will be higher, that I hope. So for UFI, looking forward to Mary, what you have suggested, some of the additional learning program. Some women are seeking actively, some maybe need to have more of a structured curriculum to help them. I think we will do whatever we can to really help UFI to be part of this initiative.
Thank you. Simon, what's our homework?
Well, I think I've said it really, but I think I just repeat the two things really for me, which it made me think about coming into this session and has only made it even stronger listening to what people have been saying. And I think it's helping the males, if you like, understand how we can change our behavior, how we can change our language, how we can change our attitudes, etc. But I think that I do think UFI could lead in terms of actually looking at what is best practice in terms of that whole fundamental step. You mentioned the Norwegian or the Nordic routes. I think that there are some things around that which, well, many things around that which we could learn from and could instigate. And I think it starts at the very basic all the way up. So having those, if you like, pegs in the ground to help us change as businesses, and perhaps what is UFI best practice for us all to actually try to attain would be really useful.
Great.
Thank you. Over to you, Mary.
So again, watching some of the comments that are coming in, I think there's an opportunity for UFI to lead the way. I personally have been energized by this, partly because, first of all, it's the initiative that I wanted to drive. And secondly, I'm energized that there are so many men part of the conversation and hearing their perspective. It's been fascinating listening to Simon today and Marty's comments and watching the comments, going through the chat. So what I'm going to take away is I need to get my act together and get this SIG organized. We've work to do. But my observation that I hadn't thought about, partly because I am driven enough to go and find information, that women do need that structure and do need that education, and how do we provide that? And I think UFI is in the perfect spot to do that. So, I'm seeing the comments about chairman of the board from Cassandra made a point there, and that maybe there is something that we can help with, changing the language and driving diversity, inclusion, and equity forward. So I thank everybody for their comments. It's been really good, and I look forward to, as I say, getting my act together. So please join me. So I'm going to need the help.
Please join both of us. We'll all need your help. We can't do it by ourselves. It's got to be a joint effort. I want to say a mega big thank you to our three speakers today, to Mary, to Margaret, to Simon. Thank you. Thank you as well, Kai. I would like to thank everyone who took the time out from their afternoon to contribute, or just to be here, just to be part of this discussion. Please feel to send your comments, any comments that you have, to media@ufi.org. You'll be receiving a short feedback survey to see how we did. We can always do better. Please tell us how, and feel free to post all this stuff on social media after the session ends, on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, with UFI Connects. Any upcoming sessions you'll be able to see as well on the UFI Connects part of the UFI website, and of course on social media. And a big thank you to our diamond sponsors, to TSEB, to Qatar, to Shenzhen World, and to Freeman. You've been a great public today. Thank you ever so much, and stay well and healthy. So thank you everyone, and take care. Catch you again soon.
Thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye.